Hi everyone, this is going to be a tutorial for how to make a javelin. I'm doing a reskin sort of a thing where it's going to look like a trident instead, but it's going to be the same principle of throwing and stabbing. So I saw that there weren't a lot of javelin tutorials and how-to-dos online, and I decided, okay, well, if I'm going to make one, I can make a video to help everyone else out. So what I'm going to be using is a few things. I'm going to first be using a half-inch fiberglass rod, about 5 feet. Then I'm also going to be using blue camping foam, like for a lot of other projects. I'll also be using a piece of pool noodle that's thin, or like the pipe insulation foam. Couldn't find any of that, so this was a close second. And that's going to be used for the curtaining padding. You're also going to need some sports tape and cloth tape. This will help take care of the harder reach places that a cloth cover can't quite cover. That is not the striking surface. You might want to do a cloth cover for the courtesy padding, but I don't have that, so I'm going to be using the cloth and sports tape to take care of that instead. And then you're also going to be needing some sort of cloth cover for your striking surface. I'm actually going to be using socks because I have them all in this same color, and I'm doing a theme for the Amtgard event going on right now. Then you will also need to have some Velcro pads and or strips, and I'll show you how that's going to be used later. I'm not going to be using the actual construction of the javelin, so that's completely optional. But there is going to be, we do need to have some adhesive foam sheets, craft foam sheets, and that is what we're going to be using to make our javelin / trident thingy. And so that's going to be it, and so I'll show you how I'm going to make it.
Alright, so here we have the head of the javelin / trident. I've marked the specifications for you, but these two are not going to be in the core. The core is going to go in this one right here. You can see how it's we're going to cut out a slot to have it fit. Cross piece is optional. It's just for look for the trident. And this main one is going to be your actual striking surface legal area. And the thing is, with the specifications, it can actually fit side by side on a piece of the camping foam. This is what our pommel is going to look like. It's a fairly simple design, about 1 inch on each side. You're going to make sure you want to get 4 of these, just like for the head, and that's going to be our width requirements. Alright, so I actually used a heat gun to put it all together, and the reason why I did this is for a few reasons. Number one, I really like how the heat gun works, because it is a substitute for glue, and it holds it even better, in my opinion, than glue does. We're going to be putting these together in this way, kind of like where the curves are kind of opposing each other, so it goes straight when we put it all together. Just to show you guys one more time, like right here, we're going to put them opposite, and then we're going to start with the cross piece. So I've kind of tuned it out so you guys don't have to hear the droning of the gun, but we're going to start at one end, and I'm using this end because starting with all 3 of those ends on the other side would have been a little bit difficult. But and it takes literally like no amount of time to actually get it to stick to each other, so it works really well and really fast, which is another reason why I really like to use the heat gun instead of glue. Like, even just like that, just those few seconds, this thing isn't coming apart very easily. You would have to force it apart. So now we're going to be doing the 3 prongs of the trident. I'm actually going to be doing the first prong, just to show you guys, if you guys are making the trident, the javelin without it looking like a trident, just to show how I put that part together first. And again, it doesn't take very long. He's kind of slowly lay it down. Sorry, I can't really show you. The camera wasn't in a good position, and I really didn't know how else to do it. So if I could show you a different way, I really could, but I couldn't, so I'm sorry. But anyways, Just like that, the first one's pretty much done, and now we're going to be doing the second one. So, and again, it's sticking. It will not come undone. So, and I'm just going to continue on doing these sides, and just to give a quick hindsight, after this part, you're actually going to want to cut out the slot. I didn't do that beforehand, as you will see in the video. So yeah, right after you put these, just the first two pieces together, cut out the slot where your core is going to go. That is extremely important. I will actually show you later on about what it looked like for me to actually tear it apart to get the slot for the core to go. And you'll see just how strong this heat gun treatment is. I'm right now doing the sides just to make sure it seals together really well, and just make sure that there's no gaps and holes so that things don't come apart. And this is just how it's gonna be. It's just a simple process. You just repeat this for the other pieces, and I'll show you how I do those two pieces as well. But yeah, just make sure you seal up all the holes. It'll make it very waterproof and very tight and together. So right now I'm putting on this other piece, and you can tell how it kind of curves downward. That's what I wanted to do. And I'm going to be doing the same thing when I flip it over to the other side, just to make sure it's straight when it's all put together, so that it doesn't bend and look wonky and not be straight, which would be either dangerous and or ineffective in how the weapon works. So yeah, in my opinion, it's very important that you make sure it's as straight as possible. But yeah, once again, I'm just starting with the end of it, and then I'm going on and doing the prongs themselves. Again, just starting with the middle one and then moving on to the side ones. And again, if you aren't making it look like a Trident and you're just using it for the Javelin, you can just do it the middle one. You don't even have to worry about the two side prongs as well. But yeah, of course, because I am doing the Trident, I have to do those. But if you are doing the Trident along with me, make sure you do the side prongs after the middle prong. It helps it get together much easier. Now you will see how it's starting to bend, even though I had put the foam curling the other way, but that's just because of how the heat gun works, and that's why it's so important to make it flip over to where it bends the opposite direction when you put it on, so that way it'll be straight when you're done. But right here, I actually realized my mistake before I put the next one up. So yeah, right here, you can see exactly what it looks like. You have to rip and tear to get this stuff out. It dries so much faster than glue. You don't have to buy the glue, so it's even less expensive, and it actually makes it lighter because you don't have to. The weight of the glue isn't there, which is very helpful. But yeah, so now that you've seen how much damage this thing can take, while the rest of it still looks completely fine. So it's extremely durable, which I really appreciate. But yeah, so now that I've gotten that done, I actually am going to be putting this last layer on. And that is just to, make sure it's going to be straight. And I'll show you afterward how straight it's going to be. Again, when you're doing this though, make sure you don't compress the foam like too much. You do have to get it to have a little bit of pressure just to kind of have the melted foam in between layers fused together. But don't push too hard, otherwise it'll be really compact, and I honestly don't know if that would become Amtgard legal or not. But yeah, I didn't decide to try to figure that out with this Trident. This is just a tutorial video to show you guys what I did and give you some ideas of your own. But yeah, I'm finishing up this last prong, and I will be going over the sides all over again just to make sure that it's all the way sealed. You can see that with all four of the layers, it becomes the 2-inch thick requirement for Amtgard. But yeah, and because of how the prongs are positioned and measured, it'll give the appearance of it being a Trident while not being too far away that it kind of makes it unstable and it rip apart very easily. I have used this in combat since I've made it, and it's been holding up really, really well. So I know this design is fine. But yeah. And once we get the Javelin or Trident head completed and ready, it'll be very solid, and we'll be able to get on to working with our shaft. I'm just gonna finish up with the sealing of all the edges, and afterwards, after you seal all the edges, you are totally welcome to go and use a knife and go at the edges to make sure they're all flat. I didn't necessarily to make just to make sure that I didn't cut off too much on accident. But yeah, so there was the head. Now here's our shaft. I have duct tape at the very, very top where the head's gonna go, just to give it some weight when I throw it. And then I put on my foam, after I put on the crafting foam, just to make sure it doesn't slide around. And then I put on my cloth cover after I put the packing tape around it, strike legal surface, and the pommel. And here's how you can see with the 3 socks how it worked. Here's a closer up version. I actually had to cut the middle sock and then hand sew the other 2 socks on so it all fits. It's not coming off anytime soon. Right now, after this, you're gonna take the cloth tape, not the sports tape, just the cloth tape, and you are gonna, if your sock wasn't long enough like mine was, you're gonna use the tape and just kind of attach it to the sock part and then kind of curve it so the sock stretches nice and tight there while still covering the strike legal surfaces. And then you are just gonna wrap these tricky parts with the tape. That is very difficult to get a cloth cover on. I don't know how I would have done that cross hilt any other way, but this way worked, and I was glad that it did work. But yeah, so yeah, just again, you're going to use the cloth tape just to cover all the surfaces of the cross piece. That is, if you made a Trident, if you made just a normal Javelin, you don't really have to worry about this part of the process too much. But if you decided to have, some other design that, requires some tape to cover, for a cloth cover, then this part is going to be very, very useful for how it all gets together. Now right here, I am getting across the distance between the cross piece and the prongs of the Trident, and you can see that now that I'm past the cloth cover, it's getting a lot easier to take care of. That's because I don't have to worry about layering over the cloth cover too much. Now I have to I'm going to actually tear this off so that I can do this piece right here, the cross hilt. And while the other ones have been, lateral, this one's going to be a little bit more perpendicular after I have just given a brief covering over the cross hilt. Now again, these parts may hit people, hopefully not, but even if they do, just make sure you don't tack down the cloth tape too much, otherwise it will not work as courtesy padding and it will hurt people. So you're seeing that I'm just kind of smoothing my hand over it. That's just to make sure that there are no bumps or bubbles. Just making sure that it's packing down flat and connecting to itself, sticking to itself. And that's all I'm doing right there. And then I'm going to be doing just kind of connect the 2 areas along that crease right here. Tape was giving me problems right there. And so now I'm actually going to be turning it and going the other way, just for the perpendicular kind of pattern, to get on top of and underneath the cross hilt, just to make sure that I can put it all together correctly. And doing it this way and whereas perpendicular to the otherwise lateral pattern that I had been showing. It gives it complete and total cover all over the hilt. So if you have a hilt or something similar design where you have to cover it up, I would suggest a perpendicular pattern just to make sure you get everything in there, unless you already had a specific pattern in mind. As you can see, it's coming together a lot better now with the cloth cover and the cloth tape, providing a more cohesive cover. And I'm just going to finish up this side. I just had to switch it over so that I could take care of both sides. And then the next step is going to be putting a cloth cover over the shaft of the javelin. So right here, I'm just going to kind of show you what it looks like when it's completed. And now we move on to the shaft of the javelin. So right here, I kind of did the same thing at the pommel, and now this is again, there's the pool noodle here. We're going to use the sports tape this time. It's a wider roll than the cloth tape, and so it's going to be able to be put over a lot more easily. And I'm just going to put a single strip from one end to the other, from the pommel to the hilt of the Trident. I'm going to use some scissors real quick and just kind of cut this piece off. And so after you lay it on there, I'm just going to put my hand over it and just kind of smooth it all out. And like as you can see, there's like no bubbles. It looks fine. And then I'm going to place another strip. I'm just going to repeat this process a few times, going from one end to the other. I am going to be giving a little bit of overlap just to make sure that I don't get any cracks or splits in between my pieces of tape, so that it'll be all one cohesive piece of cloth cover, sports tape cover. And again, this is just for the courtesy padding. So just make sure you don't press it down too much when you do this. That's why I slide my hand instead of like push down on it. And I also find that doing these longer strips instead of winding it around in like a spiral fashion from one end to the other, doing these lateral strips actually helps keep it from compressing, especially later when it gets squeezed or held or it hits something. If it's in a spiral shape, it'll stick to each other and then it won't bounce back. Whereas with this, where you have very little overlapping and with a straight design instead of a curved one, it'll bounce back a lot easier, and I found it's a lot more safe for courtesy padding. Well, any padding for that matter. Yeah, I'm just doing a few more strips of this, and you can see how it's going to look like when it's all the way completed. And it's just using these strips of tape. Now again, you could have used an actual cloth cover for this, but which probably would have helped a little bit better than the sports tape when it comes to cover that doesn't constrict or compress the courtesy padding. However, I feel like this was a really good second option that I was able to use to be able to cover it all the way without having a large amount of cloth I needed to worry about cutting and sewing. Yeah, as you can see, it's just one more strip left, and I kind of pointed it towards you guys so you can kind of see how it looks like when it's all finished. I'm just going to stick one end here and just stretch it all the way across. Once again, I'm going to cut it. I would have torn it, but I didn't want to mess up the length or pull it away, so I just kind of cut it. You guys can feel free to tear it or however you wish, but so like the scissors are not mandatory. So now we have a completely cloth covered shaft for our Javelin Trident weapon, and you can't quite see it, but this at the end where there's the cross hilt for the head, I'm just wrapping it a few times just to make sure that the ends don't peel up and fray and get water underneath, so that it all comes up, because again, it's not a cloth cover, it's a substitute. Alright, so here we have some Velcro pads slash strips. Again, you just real quick, you want to make sure that you use the soft side. If you use the hard side, it's not going to work. What I mean by the soft side is that it's not the one with the plastic hooks. It's like the fuzzy side. And luckily I have these as adhesive pads, so I'm going to peel the back off and just kind of stick this about a half foot down from the head of the Javelin. I'm actually going to put another one right underneath that one, just to make sure that I have plenty of gripping surface. And so this will actually give us the solution, or at least what I find to be a solution to a common Javelin problem, which is, where do I store it? Using these, the hard side where it's going to stick to it, we're going to be able to put this on garb and or like equipment or shields, so that we are able to kind of stick it. So just to show you what I did, this is a piece of my garb. You can't very see it very well, I'm sorry, because it's black, but yes, it's the garb that I've been using. So yeah, black Velcro with black garb. You can't really see it very well, I'm sorry. But I'm going to be positioning the hard strip about right here, around the shoulder area, so that I can just kind of reach over my shoulder, grab it, and throw it when I want to. Yeah, and I did find that I did have to sew it a little bit just to make sure that it stayed on, because apparently the adhesive pieces don't stick to cloth very well. But yeah, now that it's on there, it'll be it was good enough that I was able to show you this next part. This is me kind of walking out into my backyard so that I can throw it. You can see how it just kind of like hangs over my shoulder. I can move and walk around. I can pick it up and easily take it off, and I can throw it. And that is my completed Javelin Trident weapon. That's the end, guys.